Yeah,
You're gonna do a
the
song, "The Stimmy's Gone."
yeah. Ain't no sunshine when the stimmy's gone.
Yeah.
The stimmy's gone. People are, it's I think the money's starting to run out of the system, Petey Pablo.
Yeah, it's, remarkable the amount of people who show up for their interview these days. It
Yeah, we're looking for a dental yep.
used to be you get people who were ghosting you left and right, and, I don't know if that's the data point that's actually turning it into an employer's market again, but I know that it helps, right? It helps get people back to their own personal accountability, their own like, okay, the endless stream of free money falling from helicopters is probably over for now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to get back to work, right? And oh, look at that. Dentistry is pretty awesome. 4 days a week, typically, pretty good hours, pretty good freedom. Yeah, it's hard work, but like pay is good too. So we're seeing a resurgence in the attendance of the interviews we schedule.
Yeah, a lot of things are coming together to make, that happen. We're looking for an assistant at the moment, and, for the first time in ages, there's, like, seemingly a lot of qualified applications coming in, not just, people that were formerly greeters at Walmart. Like, nothing wrong with that for those listening that are greeters at Walmart, but it's nice to have a little bit of dental experience with the dental assistant. Additionally, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, Pete, but 3 days ago or 4 days ago, the IRS halts processing claims for ERC. So
No, I
the
didn't know that.
the yeah, the IRS is like, "Okay, enough. Let's just halt
Yeah,
on it right now."
yeah. We hit that early with a lot of people on the pod, maybe a long time ago, maybe even 18 months, 16 months, a year ago, I don't know. And then when I started getting spam calls after spam call after spam call, people being like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh shit,
Oh, yeah.
this is about to dry up." I probably was getting a spam call a day on like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this program called employee retention?" I was like,
By
"Yeah."
the way, I was getting it from my bank. So, like,
Oh,
I got
really?
it from, like, my bank, which is, seemingly legit. It's like, "Hey, it's so and so calling from blank bank." I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's up?" And they're like, "Hey, did have you learned about the ERC credit?" So, yeah, it's interesting what's
Speaking of
happening.
speaking of banks, talk about your expansion and how,
Oh,
talk about your
yeah.
expansion because we talked about it on the podcast and right, and I think we were giving you my appetite was not there in terms of that risk per square foot and stuff like that, and we were, you were vulnerable and open and sharing what it's gonna be for, and then luckily you did that because
Yeah, like, reason 1001 for a dental practice podcast. I got a letter. Shout out to Johnny Guzman. I don't know you. I can't reference you. I can't say you're legit or not. I hope you are. But this is the VP of Business Development for the Healthcare Practice Finance Group out of Citibank in New York. He said, I was listening to your podcast last night and heard you speak about your plans for expansion. You mentioned you were quoted an interest rate of over 7%, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, I just want to reach out to let you know that Citibank is for this type of loan would be 4.49% fixed for 120 months. So I don't know if that's smoke and mirrors, but
well, I mean,
Johnny,
look, that's about what the 11 month T-bill is, right? So like they're just saying, "Hey,
right,
we're
but
going
that's
to
a
pass
low rate,
along."
Pete.
It's definitely a low rate. It's a fantastic rate, right? But I'm not saying I wasn't making it and equating it to a T-bill. I was just saying that like they're basically taking that as an opportunity, an acquisition cost to say, "Hey, let's get this guy in our ecosystem, into our flywheel." Because banks love dentists. Landlords love dentists. Everyone loves a dentist. So
Yeah, I saw
sometimes
that on Twitter, by the way, Pete. And now I'm getting every time I talk over you now, I'm thinking about that review we just got where it's like, hey, Pete's awesome. Craig, stop talking over him. You love that one, didn't you?
no, I didn't. I just sent him $1,000 on the side. They say, "Keep it up, bud."
So anyway, Peter's been super prolific on Twitter. Super proud of you. Posting all sorts of really good content. You can find him on. It's not Twitter. It's X. I'm sorry. Peter's on X at Peter Bolden. Um, and we both follow a strip mall guy, and he says here are the top 1,000 tenants ranked from best to worst, and that landlords love the most. Number one was dentist, and he writes all the way down to like 999 karate studio.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, banks wanna loan money to dentists because we don't go out of business. We may not make it, we may not make entrepreneurial profit after everything's done, but we'll definitely always pay our bills. So,
Yeah.
this shout out to Johnny. Those banks might be realizing like, hey, in this really scary environment, we want to go back to basics. And when the economy's great, dentists are loved, and when the economy's bad, dentists are loved.
You know, so I'm gonna tell you why I got active again on there. It's because I had a couple data points. One, I had a conversation with this gentleman. His name's Raul Shajed, I think is how he pronounces his last name. Anyway,
Yep.
he's really on there talking about real estate and healthcare real estate. And anyway, he and I got on the phone, and he was like, "Dude, I've had more opportunities and high quality interactions than on from Twitter than Instagram by a value. I mean, I'm sorry, by that to LinkedIn by a value of about 100." So he's basically saying LinkedIn, even though quote unquote, yes, it's the platform for business. If you've ever spent time on LinkedIn, you want to get out of there as fast as possible, because it's literally just people soliciting you. Hey, you got 30 minutes to have a meeting? Hey, right? Versus Twitter, it's engagement, and you have to kind of flex from a meritocracy standpoint, like what you're doing or the IP that you present. And so he's like, dude, I really encourage you to kind of spend some more time. And this was literally last week. And Craig, in that amount of time from last week that he and I had the conversation, I was like, all right, you know what? Take his advice and go for it. So I started getting a little more active, and I've had 3 big time people reach, like, DM and get in and be like, hey, I'm doing this. You want to have a conversation? And who knows, nothing may come of it, but like life is about conversations, and right. And sometimes finding that magical
Connections.
combination of connections and putting the right people in the petri dish. And you never know. Right. And sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs and go through a lot of things, but at least you're in the mix. Right. And without that, sometimes it's I don't know. So that's why you're seeing this. You were even pinging me when you were in Italy, and you were saying, "Well, dude, what's going on?"
Oh, I
Um,
love it. Because
and
what's great about Twitter, and I'm just kinda new to it too, Peter. Sorry for interrupting you, and whoever wrote that review is gonna
you're
be
so
all over this fucking
self-conscious of
podcast.
this. You're so
I know, it's
self-conscious
crazy.
of
I
this
can't even
now.
talk to you anymore. No, but we need, like, a moderator or whatever. But, I think one of the things that's so great about X, I guess we have to call it X now, is that you're rewarded for the content that you put out first. So you're putting out these pithy tweets that are value packed, and you're probably very deliberate. You're probably spending, it looks like you're spending a good deal of time making sure that they're accurate and good and to the point, and it's getting a lot of traction. Whereas like maybe the other, Instagram, you post your food, Facebook, you post, I don't know what you post on Facebook, but snaps are one thing, but like it seems like X, Twitter is the place where intellect is the currency. So
Amen. You nailed it. I think you nailed it. Yeah. Like, how many of us have been on the Instagram, and like we all go there for entertainment. And that's kind of what it is. My wife says to me, she's like, I don't know if you're really that smart, or if you just get all your information from Twitter. It's awfully kind of her, but I'm like, it's maybe a combination of both. You're probably right. Because you're right, Craig. There is a lot of intellectual conversations happening. Ones that either, and I honestly get on there, to be honest, because I like seeing what's happening in other sectors of business, because there is a direct analog to dentistry in a lot of things. And sometimes it'll cause ideation of, never thought about that. Let me do that. Let me see if that can be applied to what I'm doing, whether it's in Bulletproof or practice ownership or whatever. So it's a very cool space to, like, when I'm bored, instead of looking at someone's cat pictures or, their kid's sports game that they post on Instagram, I'd rather use my free time, my social media time, on something that's like, that was a really good idea. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm so
Yeah.
happy that I'm on it. It was actually Michael Moreno. Shout out to Michael Moreno, who's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, get involved, get on it,"
Well,
which is really good.
well,
So
his
I've
partner
enjoyed it.
was the one. His partner is the one who I had that call with. Yeah. So they're
And
both
he,
in
you know how I got
involved.
to know him? A
No
cold call a
way.
couple years ago, like sale lease back on my building. Like that was how that all started. And he's great at cold calling. Like he really engaged me like early on in the conversation, and yeah, it's really a neat story. But yeah, I'm super proud of what you're doing. Very cool.
Well, thanks, Bob. Thanks.
So, next on the docket is something that's very important because my Remarkable just ran out of battery.
No, man. You know that Amazon just came out with one that's like that too. The whatever, their Kindle now writes like a remarkable. So I was like, I was thinking about that from, bear with me on this business analogy, right? Whenever we look at your business, you have to make sure you look at the moat. They call it the moat of how you're insulating your investment, your time, your business. And you want that moat, if you think about it like a king in a kingdom, you want to make that moat as big and that drawbridge as long as possible so that you are kind of as bulletproof as possible in your business. And so I was thinking about like the remarkable thing that you just held up the other day. And then Amazon comes out with, so Amazon has a tablet, right? It lets you read books. It's kind of the same thing as the remarkable, other than the fact that it didn't let you draw on it. So unfortunately, Remarkable's moat was very skinny in that all they had to be disrupted, almost probably to bankruptcy in time. We'll probably see is Amazon coming out with one feature on their notebook, on their Audible notebook. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. They
So
are
that's
one
a good,
feature away from disrupting their entire model, that other
right.
company's entire
Right.
model.
And so when you're looking, and so it's great when times are good and you're selling a lot of Remarkable tablets, it's great. But then it captures the attention of Amazon saying, holy shit, this is a lot of market share we're losing out. Hey, engineers, can you guys make us have a little pencil and make the screen right on? Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do that. No problem. We'll have it out next quarter. Boom. Done.
Yeah, it's the Kindle Scribe.
And they're
It's out
looking
here
at
right
that
now.
data, no different than the Amazon brands you see, right? The batteries now that you see, like they have the data is the sales of the data is the true power of that. Because they can see the sales.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to, now that I
And
have you
that's what you
pinned
sorry,
into
that's
a
one
corner of
well,
do I have a delay?
no, no, no. I'm just trying to solve my problem of interrupting you. I just can't help it. I think it might be a form of Tourette's. It's called like podcasters Tourette's. I want to just and like kind of book note or bookmark what you just said about the moat. You've always said historically to me that you love dentistry because of the moat that dentistry provides.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine, you don't have to be a medical doctor to open up multi-medical practices, and you can get a lot of heavy hitters coming into it. But the moat that we have in dentistry is that you need to be a dentist in every state to own the dental practice. And
Well,
even though
not
there's
every state,
DSO,
but
but
you are
the
right. You are right.
DSO the DSO, although is a workaround, it still requires dentists at some level and is more friendly towards dentists. And the moat exists in dentistry for us, which is, thank God for that because, an average business idea in business or a mediocre business idea in general business is usually revolutionary in dentistry.
Well, think about this for a second, right? Think about the moat. It's pretty expensive to go to dental school. It's pretty hard to get into dental school. It's pretty hard to graduate from dental school. Pretty hard to get financing to open a practice. So every layer of hard, right, is increasing your moat in terms of the economy, in my opinion. Right. As my granddad always said, if it was easy, everyone could do it, and everyone will do it when it's easy. But when it's hard, it's the hard shit that we get grumpy pants about. Like, God, it's so hard, and I have so much debt.
Right.
Gosh, opening a practice is so hard. Gosh, running dentistry is so hard. Gosh, doing the dentistry. So this is another reason why I just love dentistry is because all those things, right, create job security in our economy, right? And maybe you're even if you're just middle of the road and you're doing kind of what the national average is, it's still a really great living. You still very fulfilling. It's just a great profession. But because of that access, because of that moat, you're not competing with the likes of everyone who's trying to open a restaurant because everyone can open a restaurant. Therefore, it's super competitive. Therefore, the rates, it's supply and demand. If you're competing at that level, Craig, then that's why restaurateurs have a inverse success ratio than dentists do, right? Dentists hardly ever fail unless they get hooked on pills or something else. It's usually something catastrophic. So,
And it also compresses their profitability. A restaurant's profit, if it's kicking ass, is like what, 8%, 10%? So like the competition and the level of forces that are in the restaurant business are compressing profitability too.
but then you take an industry, right? All the aforementioned, I just said, then you take an industry like that, all the barriers to entry, And then you take an industry that is really composed of a lot of people who are highly technical. Agreed?
Yes. High detail, risk averse, highly technical.
Right. And now you throw in something that says, hey, I would really like to be more, I would really like to compete in this space because I have dreams and desires and a vision for multiple locations or a bigger practice than what my dental instructor said I could have, kind of thing, right? Dental school instructors. And so it makes it a prime
Yeah.
platform to be able to get whatever you want, right? If you don't want to do anything and don't want to take risks, great. Good life. You're going to have a great life. You're going to change a lot of people's lives, and you're going to make a pretty baseline down the middle of the road income in terms of a dentist. Right. But if you want to kind of open multiple locations or get into real estate or get involved in a lot of things, that's what I'm saying. That's where the whole freedom of direction thing, Craig, I think comes from. And it's mainly because of the moat we were talking about. Right. Because
Yeah.
it's
There's so
not
many
a
layers to the
million
moat.
people being able to compete against us.
Right. And I also think selection bias, like what has you be good at organic chemistry, may not be having you be good at being an entrepreneur. So like the fact that you can navigate successfully school if you can navigate school successfully, it typically means you're a rule follower. To be a amazing entrepreneur, it typically means you're great at being a rule breaker. So it's like this other level of moat as well, that the people that pursue dentistry, like you said, are risk averse and good students. And, I think what has you be good at school also sometimes competes with having you be as an entrepreneur. Naval Ravikant famously said on one of his tweet storms recently, like, if you need a degree to do it, it will never make you wealthy. Meaning you get so specialized, so much training that you're forced to trade your actual productivity of your two hands or your one mind for your revenue. Lawyers, architects, dentists, doctors, all of us. So it's an interesting thing. It requires a shift. And we've said it before on the pod that we think, or at least I believe, some of the greatest dental entrepreneurs that I've ever met were not amazingly gifted clinicians. They didn't do what you did. They didn't become, they didn't go through the AACD and COIS. They saw 3 years of dentistry, clinical dentistry. They said, I know how to do a filling in a crown. This is boring as hell. I don't know what FMRs and diagnostic wax ups and all on four is all about. So screw that. I'll just open up my second, third, fifth, and 20th practice instead.
Yep. Yep. I literally had that conversation yesterday with a gentleman I just kind of gotten to know. He's a dentist, much younger than me and much farther along in terms of he had ultra clarity on what he wanted to do. And it was, real estate and things like that. And he was just moving along like crazy. But already had like 5 practices at age 34 and just knew that. Right. And so that's what that's why I love and I roll my eyes sometimes over it, but I do like it. The know thyself, when you can get clear on who you are, what lights you up, what pulls you to that vision that you have versus pushing you or someone else inauthentic. When you get some clarity on that, that's when magic shit starts happening. And I'm like probably the least woo-woo guy on this podcast right now by a factor of 10.
Yeah,
I
but you're
think
more woo-woo now than ever before.
I really am because look, I'm woo-woo because I see the freaking value in it and that I'm like, all right, I see where the rubber meets the road. And then when you sit there and have hard conversations with yourself, right? And sit there and put your phone away and really get clear on what you want the rest of your freaking life to look like, not just in your business, not just in your clinical acumen, but your family, your marriage, your friends, your time off, your experiences. Like, what do you want to see? Because you get one freaking ticket. And so when you spend some time, and sometimes, and Craig, I got to tell you, for much of my life, it was very uncomfortable for me I did not really want to peel the layer back of onions on myself. I did not want to peel, if I was an onion, I didn't want to peel back my layers because I was afraid of what I might find,
Interesting.
and because I liked what was the topical, I like what I could see, right? But when you started kind of unwrapping things, I was like, man, maybe I'm going to start showing some vulnerabilities, and I can't show vulnerabilities, not to myself, because what if that changes the way I act and all these things? So I kind of left, or I kind of functioned from a place of protection. So anyway, we're kind of all over the place, but I
don't want to let that go though, if you don't mind, Peter. So when did the shift when was the initial like, okay, I'll peel back a couple more
I
layers?
think
When
having kids, right?
yeah,
Thinking, being forced to look outside myself for once.
yeah.
I was able to live my life for me until then. And yeah, I think it was around that shift that I needed to kind of dig deeper and find out, because I had some ticks, meaning I had some things that not physical ticks. That sounded weird, but I had some tells or some
Yeah,
ticks, things that
quirks.
I didn't
We
like.
all
Yeah.
got that crap, man. We all got that stuff.
So anyway, and so it was
Well,
interesting. We just had
Thoreau
our mastermind call, and I was listening to someone say, "You know what I really need to do? I just need to sit down for a day and like spend some time with myself, asking myself these questions, drawing out this vision, getting crystal clear clarity. Because although I thought I was clear, I'm really not." And I was like, "That's such a profound awareness to say I need a day with just me, no phone, no whatever, just to get clear on what I want to do with the rest of my life." And you and I kind of, we're on the downward slope. I think it starts really impacting you then, because you give less shits about what people think when I think you're on the downward slope of your life. And I said, if we're assuming that our lives are 80 years and you're kind of on the downward ride, and you start giving less and less of, two shits about what other people think, and kind of thinking like, man, am I making an impact? Am I creating a legacy for the people that I love? Um, or have I spent all this time like, doing shit for other people that I don't really give a shit about?
profoundly said, and the kick in the ass about this whole conversation is it comes in tranches. Like you have a great game plan. I hate using the word vision because people like think of vision as some like sort of hallucinogen that they ingest and they go to the desert and find what they're supposed to do. It's a game plan. You have a great game plan, you achieve it, a decade goes by, and that no longer fulfills you. And it's a requirement as a human being to like re-examine now what's the next chapter, what's important again. And I've watched your evolution being your friend, and even like on a recent tweet, like this morning, you wrote something like someone said like, "Who is ever into this hustle porn, like always
Mm,
achieving and
mhm.
24/7 work?" And
Well,
I
remember that was
retweeted.
a thing, right? Back in,
No,
I
I
don't
know
know.
Gary V.
Yeah, Gary Vee talks about it. Yeah, yeah. I can
Yeah,
outwork you.
so yeah, I can outwork you, and I think that's an alluring and sexy narrative. But at the end of the day, I know a lot of people who are hustling and are really toxic, like that tweet
Mhm,
was saying. I was
mhm.
in a trip with a bunch of those guys recently. So, it's, when you don't have it, you think that this somehow mythically, when I arrive at this place where I have all this resources and money and time off or whatever, that I'm going to be happier, and you get all of it. It's like, okay, now I have to dig deeper. So to point into my own layers of the onion, I've got to go deeper now again, because it's like, what's my next chapter looking like? Interesting.
Well, I have to tell you, I prepared a completely different pod from where we are today, and it's going over attracting a talent. How do you keep them? We're going to save that until we have the other two guys with us, because I think it'll be more collaborative. I do want to tell you a couple of cool things that have been working on, and you actually were able to experience one in a beta form.
Oh, that's super
So
cool.
so this is where I think the tin hat, where you got that busted on the comment, because I'm a tin hat and technologist and things like that. So I took AI, right, because I'm really interested in it, and I was like, how can this help Bulletproof, or how could this help dentist? And I don't know how, Craig, this is going to be disseminated, but it's a really cool. So there's a thing everyone always thinks about GPT in terms of, okay, I log in, I ask it a question, it gives me an answer potentially. The quality of your prompt, meaning what you're asking for, and little tricks around it, is something called prompt engineering, and which really dictates how well the response you can get. So you can start training it, just the basic GPT. But there are things called custom LLMs, right? Large language models, where you can actually you can load up your own data. So they're called vectors. They're kind of vectors of databases, and you upload data to then have it kind of go through so you can basically chat with your documents, if you will. Like, so from a P&L perspective, you could chat with them, be like, hey, how are things looking from a forecasting standpoint? Or you could upload. So I said, you know what? We have over 300 podcasts. We have a book. We have all these content that we've created from summits and such. And so I developed this, basically a custom LLM for Bulletproof. So we had 300 of the websites 300 of the podcast transcribed. You can imagine the corpus of data that is, plus the manuscript of the book, plus all the PDFs that we do from a field manual and stuff. And so I loaded all this in and connected it to Chat GPT-4. And so then I sent it to you, and you were just like, what the hell have you done?
Yeah, crazy.
It was crazy, and it was crazy probably because you sensed a lot of your own tone in there, right? Like, meaning you sensed your fingerprint on that, because it did extract a lot of that from what you had said. Meaning it wasn't just a question that went right through GPT. It went through all of the podcast, all of the book, all of this, and then it gave you an answer, kind of thing. So I'm still waiting on how we're going to disseminate this. Maybe it lives just on the website, and if someone wants to chat with Bulletproof GPT, that would be cool. The cool thing is, and I think that this is a feature and a bug of me, Craig, is that I am intellectually curious about a lot of things. I also then think that I'm the person that needs to learn it. And it's frustrating because I don't have the bandwidth of time to really dive into a lot of the wormhole stuff I want to go down, whether it's Bitcoin or crypto or AI or Twitter or whatever, right? But it is intellectually satisfying to be able to put something together like that, because look, I'm as a dentist, I was not trained on tech and things like that. But obviously there are people who are far more advanced in the AI sector. And I think this applies to the marketing, which I always say in my marketing lectures. These marketing lectures aren't designed to bring you to become a marketing expert in 1 hour, but they are designed to give you awareness so that you potentially don't get taken advantage of, or you don't feel vulnerable when you have a conversation with someone about marketing or AI or whatever, that you can at least partake in that examination. So, but again, it's kind of just, it's a little bit of a curse.
There was something in your college training or your schooling where you delved into software, computer
Yeah, I
science?
was a
What was
computer
that?
science
Yeah,
TA. So yeah, I was
but
a
then your
bio.
first job, like, didn't it translate into something that you were doing some software, like, for that dentist you were working with? I remember a story you said. And by the way, that story you gave when we were up with, Brian up at, having a meeting in Atlanta, that was freaking unbelievable. We have to do that as a podcast. I had no idea about your first job. No idea. But, like, remember how you were doing, like, some sort of tinkering or something for the computers
Yeah,
of that
well,
practice?
because I had some, look, this is circa 2001, and because I had just come I was fresh with technology, and I entered a practice that, basically it was my sole job to become indispensable, because I was getting paid literally nothing. Literally almost nothing. I offered to work for nothing. They then acquiesced to paying me as $26,000 a year as a dentist for like an assistant at the time.
So
That's
your
what the
first
assistant.
dental job was $26,000 per
Yeah,
year.
for a year.
Yeah,
For a year.
that's awesome.
And
Yeah,
so and guess what? Fast forward 18 months, I'm offered partnership.
it's awesome.
And it was because of the fact that I knew that I had but look, it was a different time. I had I had a little apartment, I had tons of time, and I had no wife or kids or nothing, right? So it was literally just dentistry all the time, or the business of dentistry all the time, or photography, or whatever. But I knew, and I think this is a good lesson for all things, and and I preach this to my children, is that you are rewarded in proportion for the value you create in
Of
society.
course.
And that same thing
Society owes
applies.
you nothing. Society owes you nothing, and the problem is, Pete, and I know, I'm interrupting your flow here. Our kids are being taught that there's rules in school and there's rules in life, and they're being set up in school that everything is fair and equity and all that, and they get out into life, and it's really a major fall for them to fall from this platform that they're being supported that everything's equitable. It's not. Life is not equitable. Life rewards those who provide, support to it.
It really is true. And I think the companies or the practices you may enter are direct little microcosms. So, Greg, I knew my way to higher income was through being indispensable, right? Being almost too good to lose, so to speak. And so I was like, when it was like, hey, I can take over this in the practice. I can take over this. I'll take over photography. I'll take over the computers. I'll take over watching your dog, whatever it was. I'll take it over. And so that's, that story we're tiptoeing around. That being said, I did learn it was a tremendous experience, right? Even though I left that experience, it was a tremendous experience. And you've actually met her now because she was at the AACD lecture we did, was sitting right there, front row, supporting and being cool. She's a good, nice lady. And she taught me a lot. Honestly, that was the first place, Craig, that I, and this is going to go somewhere. Bear with me. That was the first place that I saw the impact that dentistry could have. And yes, by the dentistry, the life-changing dentistry, but I saw the way that the customer experience, right? The patient experience was the difference. And so you don't know this. I know we tiptoed around this, but you don't know this, but we will be publishing a book here pretty soon. You and I, again, I'm laying it down, and it's because the patient experience weaves its way. There's almost nothing that it doesn't touch inside of dentistry, right? From the marketing aspect all the way to the post-op call or to the referrals you ask for, the reviews. The patient experience is all the way through that. And when you can nail that, when you become obsessed with that, like you and I have, right? I think that's what you and I, when we first had our phone call and we first ever met in 2016, we were comparing notes and flexing to each other the shit we've done. That was the thing that was the parallel, was that we were ultra focused on the outcomes for people, way we made them feel, and the environment, making a nice environment and paying attention to the five senses, the way the practice looks, the way it smells, the way it sounds. Is dentistry painful? Are we taking our time with them? Are we being, are we treating them like a guest in our home? And so it's a book that needs to be written, because I think, and I was just describing this, maybe it was on Twitter, Craig, honestly, my conversations are now flowing together. But I think, look, if dentists are worried about DSO consolidation, or if they're worried about DSO competition, the one way out of this, the one way where you can make yourself bulletproof, is by creating such a remarkable experience for your patients that can't be recreated at the scale level. Unless it's a really good, I haven't seen a DSO that's been able to do this yet, but the ground game, the customer service, the rapport, the post-op, like the whole thing buttoned up all the way through. I haven't seen anyone at scale be able to do this, like large scale, but it can be done
in dentistry, you're saying?
In dentistry. Yeah, sorry. But it can be done in a lot of the practices we talk to in our practices, because we're operating those, right? We can pivot and move very, very nimbly, right? Very quickly through things. We can change and adapt versus, and that's an advantage. That's a superpower versus, the big corporate industry. Like everything has to flow through all the channels of bureaucracy.
Well, you have to deploy it. Anything deployed at scale is hard. I mean, Papa John's first pizza restaurant was probably badass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, his 1050th store is probably not the same. I mean, but as Henry Ford once said, quantity has a quality all of its own.
Mm-hmm.
When someone asked him, are you quantity or quality? It's true. I mean, there are DSOs that are coming out, de novo DSOs, that are pretty damn good at what they're doing. They're better than anything we saw 10 years ago.
For sure.
And Aspens are better today than they were 10 years ago, and Pacifics are better. So I think the patient experience is an important factor that a lot of people are finally fully appreciating. I mean, I think it was missed for a long time.
And I think dentistry does it better than medicine, for sure. And other medical disciplines, like I think dentistry does it the best. I'm just saying, like, there's just such a way to be remarkable, and because everyone's scared of dentistry, and no one really likes going to the dentist, and so when you can empathize with that and create an experience that mitigates that for people, man, you start getting people talking. Yeah, the post-op call is like just the crazy thing. Like, oh my God, my dentist called me. I've never had that in my 42 years. Like it took you 10 seconds and now you just got 3 people that heard about you, you know? So little shit like that. Um, there was something else I was going to tell you. And of course I didn't write it down. So it's woo, flew by and's gone.
But you know, it's funny coming back to the dental AI, the Bulletproof AI. I was asking it all sorts of stuff like, who's taller? Peter Bolden's taller. So you know what it is? AI only sees us sitting down. So that's the thing that you with your massive torso and my micro
Or it
torso.
only feels our masculine energy and it just assumes
Yes, yes. For the
my to
record
my
for the
toxic
record, so
masculine.
when we upload this podcast, I am taller, but only by like 2 inches, right? But it's all in your torso and my legs or whatever.
But it's funny, like, I'll stand next to you and be like, "Damn, he's tall. Look at these long legs." And then you and I will sit down and do recordings and stuff, and everyone's always like, "Craig, are you sitting up straight? Are your back
I'm
hunched?"
not. I'm
And
not.
it's just I have an exceptionally long torso and you have exceptionally long legs. It's funny.
You know, together we'd be like 7'3". Be
We'd be
amazing.
gawky as hell.
Be
We
fine.
sure would be. All right, bud.
What
Well,
else
I
is
don't
going down, man? Talk to me
nothing.
about
I'm about to
the
open up.
rural practice update. I wanna hear
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that
Well,
update.
let me give you a couple updates. We're about to actually open up my 5th Atlanta Dental Spa location next week.
I saw it.
And
It's
that
awesome.
you did see it? Oh, I sent you a
Yeah,
picture
well,
of
I
kind of
saw
like,
the frame out and stuff. It was really
okay, well
beautiful, really
now
well.
it's done. And I enjoy the it's probably a lot like pregnancy, although I've never been pregnant. But when you're going through it, it's like, oh my God, this is hard. I don't want to do this again. And then every time you do it, you see the end product, you're like, that was magical. This thing is magical. Look at it. Right. And you forget about all the ass kicking for the 4, 5, 6 months prior. But now we're at the fun stage where, I'm designing art and I've got some cool things coming from Etsy and just really making it unique and really looking at the flow and hooking up TVs and shit, stuff like that. Right. So that's the fun stage, right? When it's grinding of concrete and placing pipes and yelling at your plumbers because they're not putting 45-degree bends in, they're doing 90-degree bends. That's
Yeah,
the shit that drives you crazy.
yeah,
Which, by the way, if you're constructing your office, instruct the plumbing. And inspect the plumbing. Don't
absolutely.
let them put in 90-degree bends. You would think that would be commonplace. You think every plumber would have to know about Bernoulli's principle or Bernoulli's law, but they don't.
Yep. By the way,
And
you know how
update.
I'm putting the vacuum lines in from my new ops on the outside of the building. So I was
It's
gonna trench the
genius.
floor. I'm gonna go all the way around the outside. So
That's
all my new
genius.
vacuum lines, yeah, wasn't my
Who
idea.
brought that up?
My Patterson rep is like, "Why
So
don't we
the
do it
only
this
thing
way?"
with that though, Craig, you're going to have to worry about, well, you don't have water lines, you just have vacuum. Is just freezing. And you also have Florida, which you don't have to worry about freezing. So never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Isn't that wild?
That is pretty
It's
wild. And I
funny.
guess that's, I don't see a massive advantage of that other than if you have a fracture in a line, it's much easier to replace than it is cutting up concrete. But it's pretty
Oh,
rare
shit,
that,
if I knew knowing what I know now, I would have loved to have run all the vacuum on the outside.
yeah, but
You know,
why?
imagine that, just tee it off onto every room just because it's
Oh,
trenching
I
the
see. Right.
floors and
Because
it's
the
just
power would be, you would not have to this circuitous pathway through your building to get to every
yeah, of
chair. You could,
course.
yeah, yeah,
All those
yeah. I see.
bends. And all
Yeah.
my chairs face outside. I've designed my building and like your Johns Creek office, it's the same
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll give you I'm actually building another building here. I just signed the, so I'm doing a 1031 exchange, which is,
Is that the one up by, in,
it,
Blue Ridge?
mhm. Yep.
Okay, cool.
It's up there. It's up in Blairsville. Yeah. So I've signed the contract on the land, doing it. I'm selling a building here in Atlanta. I'm doing a 1031, getting the land. The land's quite expensive for what I'm getting, but it's where all the growth is going. But I'm finally being able to build this building that I designed probably 2 years ago. It's just real glass and modern looking and cool and but not like over the top. It's really just like a pitch roof. But but I might implement that, although it gets pretty cold. But I do like that that plumbing thing that you talked about.
Or a floating floor, actually. Since you're going design up, ground up, a floating floor seems so cool to me, like modular, and you can lift it all up and move plumbing around. Imagine if we had that in our offices,
Mhm.
you know, so there's a false floor and all the plumbing's underneath. It'd be so badass to me.
Plumbing and wires, right? It'd be so
That's
much
what I'm
easier.
saying, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
what
I
is your
don't
plan? One dental office and retail space on either
know.
side
Well,
or
yeah, I'm glad you asked, actually. So it's going to be about 5,000. So the building's about 8,000 square feet. It's about 5,000 for the office that I'm moving there, right? And then I'm leaving that 3,000 open, which ironically I've already had people be like, "Hey, can we lease that like a firehouse?" Subs are like, "We'll lease it." I was like, "I don't think that's really what I want to do." But look, beggars can't be choosers. But my ideal thing to do would be to open up a kids in ortho in that town, because there's not one for about 50-mile radius. And but I can't implement that, right? As a generalist, I can't do that. I can't set that up. Um, but that would be my goal, is to kind of set up, A, to give access to for the community, but B, it's just a massive opportunity for no access to the, I mean,
So let
meaning
me
the,
read between the lines. If you're a pediatric dentist or an orthodontist looking to live in the Blairsville, Georgia area, which mark my words, is an amazing place. I've spent a lot of time there. Hit up Peter.
yeah, North Georgia. Yeah, hit me up, because like honestly, like I'd be amenable to kind of immediate partnership with something like that, right? Because I just think it's,
Yeah.
and they have a large practice next door, and I got two in the area to refer to already.
Yeah, it's
It'd be
instantly successful. It's
instantly
instantly
successful, and
successful.
I just got to
Yeah.
get it done. So that's exciting, and Craig, that back to know thyself, to bring this podcast full circle. Building has always been something, like, just, and when I say building, I mean anything. I mean building stuff on my car, or building a tree fort, or building a building now, or building a dental practice. Building has always been like in my DNA for whatever reason. And I'm not saying construction, but sometimes just the idea of it. I always said if I wasn't a dentist, I probably would have been an architect, because I like that whole, I'm going to build this, envision this. And so knowing thyself right now, I'm really excited by this. Yes, it's going to be a lot of money to build a building, but I feel it's like my destiny. I feel it's like my destiny to build this. And it's just lighting me up at this stage of my career.
That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
super cool. Hey, I got a call to action as well now that you jogged my memory. So, a friend of mine has a dental practice up in Stuart, Florida, and he owns about 5 different practices. And this one area is by and large the most successful
Stewart's
location that he
awesome.
has. Stuart,
Mhm.
Florida is cool, by the way. It's
Awesome.
definitely, it's like the next Jupiter. So anyway, I talked to a guy who did the dentographics for this space, and he's like, it's an ideal place for a startup. So I know I pitched you on the idea about doing a
Mhm.
Florida startup. But if
Is
someone
this
wants to
in
be,
your shopping center that you have?
yeah, so in my shopping center, so really great
What did
center.
the dentographics say about it, essentially? Like,
Oh, I could
meaning,
I sent it to you, but
yeah, you did.
tell me what specifically.
I would like to see, in that scenario, I would like to see kind of a ratio of population to dentist ratio. Right?
Yeah, I
And even
have
though it
that.
doesn't matter, we always talk. Look, typically most practices across the nation, Craig, are about 2,000 to 1, right? For every 2,000 residents, there's about one dentist, and that's about what you experience in most cities. Um, Obviously, you can enter a market like that when there's stiff competition and do well just by doing well, but it takes a little longer. So when you can start finding it where it's 5,000, 6,000 to 1, 7,000 to 1,
Yeah,
8,000,
that's what this was. This was up there.
it makes it so that the speed to your plateau happens much faster. And and that's not the only metric I look at, but I gotta say, I do look at that much. Like, sometimes we seek places based on the household income, right? Do you ever look at that statistic where it's all the
Of
average
course, yeah.
household income? And I gotta say, like, that's a very misleading statement, because some of my most profitable pound for pound practices are in areas where you'd say, "Oh, that town's broke potentially," or "That's not as good as it is Atlanta or Buckeye or whatever." Um, so I don't look at that as heavily. The other thing I would, the other thing that I would look at if I were you is, just geographic distance to another one. And
That's what
then
this
how
was.
big of a radius are they looking? So for rural, you have to spread it out. So usually it's a 5-mile thing you look at. You do 1, 3, and 5 miles. And for rural, sometimes you spread it out to kind of what's in the 10-mile radius. But Stewart's not rural by any means.
No, 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 it's
I'm just kind of
coastal.
talking. I'm talking while I'm giving you time while you're looking at your data so you can get your ducks in a row.
No, I don't have it. I'm just trying to find it. I don't remember what it was, but I send it to you. I'm like, "Do you wanna do it?" You're like, "Hey, give me the details." I'll send you the, demographics, but listen, if someone wants to beat us to the punch and they are looking
Yeah, hit
to
Craig
open
up.
up a practice in Stewart, hit me up. It's a really cool center, but, you and I should really consider it. Be fun.
Dude, I'm down. I am bullish on dentistry, just like I'm bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, what's up with that, by the way? I know you bought some,
I
$3,000
am
ago when it was
continually
lower.
buying. Look, the United States just, you know what the debt level just passed was?
No.
33 trillion as of last week. 33 trillion. So you
Jeez.
tell me how this ends. And America is the greatest country on the planet, but like there is a point where it becomes ridiculous to get to pull out of. So where am I on Bitcoin? The halvening is happening in 6 months from now, right? It's an event that happens only every 4 years. The ETF is bound to be approved. You don't know what I'm saying? It's bound to be
I do.
approved this year, right?
Yeah.
BlackRock's involved. Look. Don't listen to what people say. Look at what people are doing. And almost every institution that has trillions of dollars under management is going all in. And
Yeah.
and you're not hearing about it because guess what? That's not aligned with their profitability. Meaning, if there were news stories, if they were saying, "Hey, we're going all in," then obviously that would be that would be defeating their own objective of getting cheap. So again, maybe I have some bias in this, Craig, but I've had it for a long time, right? As you
Oh,
know.
yeah, you've maintained the same position forever.
Yeah, I mean 6, 7 years now. So
Yeah. We just had
8
our
years.
roomie anniversary, by the way, when we went to Roomies, by the way, remember? And I was like, "Was
Mhm.
at that table on May 8th, 2021."
Yeah, and look,
I
you
mean, it
timed it. You timed it well, and
yeah,
you did well from it. And but it wasn't my thing. Like I think I always told you, my thing was not get in, get out, and trade like stock. For me, it was more of like a libertarian, like don't tread on me kind of philosophy. Like I just didn't want people interacting. And the thing that sealed it for me was that experience I told you about with COVID, when I tried to go in and
yeah,
get money from my bank. And I was like, because I thought there'd be a cash run. And they said, give me 10,000. And then I was like, no, give me 20. Cause then I was like,
20.
here, I might as well get it. And they couldn't produce it, nor could they produce it like not there or not at another location or not just at that location. They had to order that amount of money from the Fed. And it took 3.5 weeks. And so that was scary. And it's just like the saying in crypto, Craig, not your keys, not your crypto. And the same thing applies with the bank. When you are not the custodian of that money, the bank has only given you an IOU for your money. It is technically not yours anymore. And if
Yeah.
you look at their terms of service,
Well
it will say that.
well, clearly, look at what happened. I mean, you put your money in the bank because you think it's secure, and they put it in other assets to make money on your money. They
Well,
give you your
they
interest rate, but they're
hypothecated,
making money
right?
on it.
Um,
It's crazy.
it really
Yeah, I just
is.
don't have I have some, but I don't I mean, what I got really lucky. I got that intel, I sold the Bitcoin, I bought the land, I doubled my money in the land, I bought the new land. So, it's just another asset, and, it's up until this point, there's been a lot of things that I would have thought that would have driven it to the moon. It's
Mhm.
taking longer than I
Yep,
expected.
yep.
When Trudeau decided to seize the bank accounts of those truckers that refused to get
Mhm.
vaccinated, I'm like, "Oh, shit." Or when the US decides to weaponize our currency, with what we did with Russia, the Russia conflict. I'm like, "Oh, shit." It's behaving a little bit more like a correlated asset than I
Yeah.
would have thought.
Yep.
That's all,
Yeah, that's fair.
and that
That's
just
fair.
makes me confused.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, like, when you listen to Michael, Saylor, was it Michael Saylor that did that one
Yeah.
about the pressure test? And, I mean, that's the most compelling argument for Bitcoin ever. I was
Yeah,
like,
he's
after
almost
that,
too intelligent and too out there and too analytical almost,
how is
it
he
does.
doing, by the way?
I don't know what his basis is for what he acquired most of them, but he's got, over 100,000.
I thought it
MicroStrategy has
was
about over 100,000. Um, all right. So last thing, we are toying between, Craig and I are actively deciding when and where the next summit should be.
Oh, good call to bring that up.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, crowdsource this son of a bitch.
That's right. That's right. So, we now, we are looking between actually in Scottsdale because we know that Scottsdale is kind of the mecca of all dental stuff.
Yeah.
It's very centrally located for our East Coast friends, our West Coast friends, and everyone enjoys going there because it's just the raw beauty, the hikes and things like that. So we are back and forth between two places, the Fairmont and then versus the Marriott Camelback, right off Camelback Mountain. And so my thing was that we really, really encourage and push people to bring their teams because that's where we see the rubber meet the road. If we wanted to have this fancy bougie conference where it was like just, super expensive rooms and blah, 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 and it was just doctors, then that's a different story potentially, right? Because people have, a doctor who's listening to this is like, yeah, I'll splurge on myself because it's just me kind of thing. But when you are smart enough to bring your entire team, right? 30 or 10 people, 20, 30 people, you do quick math in your head of like the room nights, the cost of the room. And I said to Craig on the side channel, like, if we really want to make the greatest benefit and we see the greatest benefit happening when the hygienist comes and the team comes and all this stuff, then we really need to be cognizant of the charges for the room. And we need to look at a hotel that's nice enough, but is economic enough where people can really invest in their team without paying $600 per night kind of thing for each room. And so, I think that's where our rub is that the Fairmont's a little more expensive.
Yeah, they're both
And
gorgeous. I'm
dude,
literally looking them up live.
I've had so many
Holy
damn dental
shit, they're crazy.
conferences. I've been to so many dental conferences, Craig, at that Marriott, it feels like
Yeah, the
I went to
Fairmont's
one at
just ridiculous too,
CEO.
though.
Yeah, it's true.
I've never
So
been to these places.
yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Um,
And by the way, the rates that we're talking about that Lacey was writing down right now are about a third of what I'm seeing online already. So good job, Lacey,
really?
getting. Oh yeah, I'm looking what they are. I mean, I don't want to misquote because these are just I don't want to say it publicly, but what I'm seeing right now is about 1/3 of what the rack rate is. So again, like the Win, I mean, bringing your team to the Win was a super special experience. But I think that Vegas, although it's a great venue and the Win was spectacular, you're competing with
Mhm.
Vegas.
Right.
And people wanna go out and they wanna see the concert, and they wanna go out to the clubs and all that stuff, and it's just hard to do that much learning and that much intense, development with your team when you have competing interests of Vegas on top of it. That's just
Yep.
my thought.
Agreed. All right, buddy.
Good
We
stuff.
will the next time the four of us together, we're going to talk about attracting A players, keeping A players, and giving the A player patient experience and how all those kind of correlate together. So I had some good stuff prepared, but we're going to put it on ice until the four of us because I want to, I think it's the power of the four is everyone comes at it from a little bit different philosophy. And so I want to hear what our other two guys have to say. So that's it, buddy. I'm glad you're back stateside, man. You have been recreating enough, then it's time to
Yeah,
do some work.
I know, it's crazy. Hey, just as a little placeholder for everybody, Summit is looking like it's going to be June 12th, through 16th in Arizona. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
I'm seeing here, and, I'd love it if people comment. I'd love to crowdsource this. Camelback, Marriott Camelback or the Fairmont Princess, both 5-star, 4.5-star hotels, 4.7, ratings on Google, so I need some more context. It'd be cool to see what people want. So comment below if you, have something to say about that.
Okay, buddy. Over and
Cool,
out,
man.
everybody. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see y'all next time.
See you next time, guys.